Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the thick of it, immersing ourselves in the incredibly gripping narrative of chapters 41 to 49 of Munshi Premchand's literary masterpiece, Gaban. Look, if you're into intense psychological drama and exploring the heavy, heavy burdens of a guilty conscience, you are absolutely in for a ride. We're unpacking a story where literally every single decision carries this massive, life-altering weight. So you really have to ask yourself, what is the true cost of saving yourself at the expense of others? This isn't just some abstract philosophical debate we're having here. It's the beating heart of our entire explainer today. We're going to trace a really rabid descent into cowardice, followed by an agonizing, yet kind of beautiful climb toward redemption. It really forces us to look in the mirror and ask, well, what would we do if our own survival was on the line? Okay, let's dive right in to Section 1, The Widow's Cruel Reality. Before we even get to the main courtroom drama, Premchand hits us with this devastating crash into reality. Picture this. Ratan goes from living in a gorgeous, luxurious bungalow, completely financially secure as the wife of a wealthy lawyer, to absolute destitution virtually overnight. And why? Well, because her husband, Panditji, just assumed he'd live a long time and completely neglected to write a will. So the second he dies, the ruthless machinery of the joint family laws just kicks right in. Her husband's nephew, Manabhushan, who lived all the way out in Indore, swoops in and legally claims every single piece of property. He looks Ratan in the eye, tells her she has zero rights, orders her to vacate her own home, and offers her this incredibly insulting tiny allowance of 50 rupees a month. But Ratan, her pride is just way too strong. She flat out refuses to be a beggar in her own home and walks right out onto the dusty street with absolutely nothing. And as she leaves, all that fury boils over into this just incredible statement. She says, "If my voice had the strength to reach the whole country, I would tell all women, sisters, do not marry into a joint family. The family is not a bed of roses for you, it is a bed of thorns." It's such a powerful moment, right? Premchand is using Ratan's fiery dialogue to just issue a blistering critique of the patriarchal legal structures of the 1930s. I mean, these were laws that left widows completely stripped of any agency and entirely vulnerable to the greed of distant male relatives. Let's move on to Section 2, A Coward's False Testimony. Now we shift to the central moral conflict of the novel, which is the absolute spectacular failure of our protagonist, Ramanath. And this brilliantly illustrates the supreme irony of the trial. It's like a bizarre flipped reality. On one side, you have over 15 falsely accused men sitting on the courtroom floor, weighed down by heavy iron chains and shackles. But get this, they're cheerful, they're fearless, they're chatting, arm wrestling, showing absolutely zero signs of despair. But then you look at Ramanath, the star witness for the prosecution. Technically, he's a free man, unchained. But as he stands there in the witness box, he's pale, he's terrified, his head is bowed. He just mechanically recites the perjury the police have forced him to memorize. The innocent guys facing prison are somehow having a great time, while the free man looks like he is completely imprisoned by his own lies. Honestly, his cowardice is so palpable, it physically repulses the people watching. Up in the gallery, Ramanath's wife, Jalpa, is sitting there in disguise, forced to watch her own husband destroy innocent lives. And Premchand brilliantly uses the reactions of the other women in the gallery to voice what we, the audience, are all thinking. One woman mutters, "I feel like shooting this scoundrel. It seems he is a starving, vile man, thoroughly mean and shallow." They see right through him. They recognize exactly what he's doing, which is selling his soul on the lives of completely innocent men just for the promise of a cushy government job. Which brings us to Section 3, Jalpa rejects ill-gotten wealth. So the verdict drops, and it is catastrophic. Every single accused man is convicted. To put that in perspective, 5 of them are slapped with 10-year sentences, 8 get 5 years, and the absolute most tragic part, Dinesh, an innocent schoolmaster with a wife, a mother, and 2 small children, is sentenced to hang. The stakes here are massive now. It's no longer just about Ramanath getting a comfortable life, it is literally about human blood on his hands. But Ramanath is completely oblivious to the true horror of what he's done. He struts up to the house where Jalpa is staying, and he is practically glowing. I mean, he's wearing a silk coat, gold spectacles, looking healthier than he ever has. He legitimately thinks a few solid gold bangles will magically erase a death sentence. Spoiler alert, they absolutely don't. Jago, Davidine's wife, takes one look at this blood money and violently chucks the jewelry right onto the floor. And then Jalpa, who's been watching from the balcony, finally confronts him. Ramanath genuinely thought his new wealth would buy back her love, but all Jalpa sees is the blood dripping from those fancy new gold spectacles. She rains down absolute fire on him. She yells, "If you can be suppressed so much by hardships and threats, you are a coward. You are not a man. You are not even an animal. You are a coward. A coward." Talk about a total shattering of his ego, right? Jalpa makes it crystal clear that she would rather literally die in poverty than touch a single coin bought with the lives of innocent men. She completely cuts ties with him right then and there, basically declaring him dead to her. All right, section 4. Trapped by police corruption. Now that his wife has rejected him, Ramanath finds himself totally dependent on the very system that corrupted him to begin with. The police know there's a high court appeal coming up, and they absolutely need Ramanath to stick to his fake story. So, to keep him locked in their little golden cage, they deploy this highly calculated 3-step psychological op. Step 1, flattery and bribes. They literally hand him a promotion letter for a cushy government post straight from the commissioner. When Ramanath actually feels a pang of guilt and tears the letter up, they instantly pivot to step 2, brutal threats. The inspectors vividly describe the sheer hell of prison, the beatings, the agonizing hard labor at the grinding mill, promising him that if he takes back his testimony, they'll throw him into a nightmare worse than death. And if that wasn't enough, step 3, seductive distraction. They bring in Zora, this beautiful and highly skilled courtesan, and literally pay her to seduce Ramanath, so he'll forget all about his wife's rigid moral absolutes. Seriously, take a second and put yourself in Ramanath's shoes here. What would you do? You're staring down 2 paths. On one hand, you risk brutal imprisonment, potential torture, and totally ruining your own life to retract a lie. But on the other hand, you can take the easy way out, accept a comfortable, luxurious life, but one that is built entirely on the blood of innocent people. The sheer psychological weight of this paralyzing dilemma just slowly starts to break Ramanath down, and he desperately tries to drown his guilt in alcohol and Zora's company. And finally, we arrive at section 5, atonement and transformation. This brings us to the final, and I think the most moving act of our explainer today. The contrasting paths of the novel's 2 prominent women are about to collide in a way that changes literally everything. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the intense visual irony Premchand sets up. Think about the labels society puts on people. Zora, the courtesan, is living in absolute luxury, draped in fine silks, basically acting as a well-paid agent for the corrupt police. But meanwhile, Jalpa, the supposedly pure, respectable wife, has totally embraced voluntary poverty. Ramanath actually catches a glimpse of her out on the street, and she's wearing soiled, torn clothes, her body looks frail, and she's carrying these incredibly heavy pots of Ganges water on her head. The juxtaposition there is just staggering. So Ramanath is so completely shaken by seeing his wife like this that he actually begs Zora to go find out what happened to her. Zora is intrigued, so she goes fully undercover, disguising herself as a Bengali student to spy on her, and what she finds, it completely shatters her worldview. She discovers Jalpa is living in this tiny, foul-smelling, damp little room. And the kicker? She's living with the family of Dinesh. Remember him? The innocent schoolmaster who was sentenced to hang because of Ramanath's lies? Jalpa, who used to be so incredibly proud and strict about caste rules, has abandoned all of it. She is now scrubbing dishes and doing grueling manual labor just to feed the starving children of the very man her husband condemned. Zora, someone who has literally spent her entire life manipulating men for money, is just brought to her knees by this completely selfless act. She steps in to help wash the dishes, and Jalpa turns to her and drops this heartbreaking confession. She says, "I am not serving, I am atoning for my sins. I am very unhappy. There would be no one more unfortunate than me in the world." You see, Jalpa is literally carrying the weight of her husband's sins on her own frail shoulders. And this immense, agonizing sacrifice just profoundly moves Zora. It fundamentally changes this courtesan's entire perspective on what true love, justice, and humanity actually look like. And that brings us to the lingering, provocative final thought of our explainer today. The text ends with this incredibly jarring, sudden line regarding the appeal. "I acquit Ramanath." But we really have to ask ourselves, just as Premchand wants us to, does true justice actually come from the gavel of a courtroom, or does it come from the agonizing atonement of the human soul? Because Jalpa's silent suffering speaks way louder than any judge's verdict ever could. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Gaban. It's a heavy question to leave you with for sure, but it's one that demands an answer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.